Well, now that we're all in space, dude, like, you know, good trip, rocket to the moon, and yeah, we're fucking stoked, man. I know when we were talking beforehand that you're proudly endorsing Aquafina.
Yes.
I went specifically to go grab some Peroni for this. Oh, you can't see because it's space, but I'm holding up my bottle right now. Oh, there we go.
Yes, you are, man. We've gone through a lot of beers as a group, you know. We were all like pretty super. We're all into Yuengling because we're from Pennsylvania, you know, like it's the hometown kind of brand, and it's great. We
just got Yuengling in Texas, so I'm pretty stoked right now.
It's a great like go-to, you know, if you're not feeling like anything fancy but don't want like a watery tasting one. Mm-hmm. It's just clutch most of the time. So our vocalist started bringing Peronis up to us. It started with like a 6-pack because our singer lives in Morgantown, West Virginia, and we live in Pittsburgh. So I mean, it's like an hour and a half away or something like that. So he just was like a fanatic for Peronis. I'd never heard of it. Like this was, you know, a year ago maybe, and he just started bringing them up to practice, and we were like, "This is fantastic beer." It's good, like for just about every mood, you know. It has a good taste. It's not too hoppy, even though it's a little more to the like tart side of beers to me. Not IPA like sour, but you know, like I don't know. It's a great one. I'm glad you're having one right now. I wish I had one with me, but I don't because I haven't left this chair for the last 12 hours, probably.
I will say I tried to pick up some hams and I couldn't find any. So
Hams is the new Pabst Blue Ribbon, I think, you know.
Definitely is.
Everyone drank Pabst because it was, you know, dirt cheap and was pretty good. Hams is like that, but it's still dirt cheap, you know, or even cheaper. It's even dirtier than Pabst used to be.
I feel like the hipsters haven't picked up on it yet because I feel like they stole Pabst Blue Ribbon.
They sure did, yeah. And now that's what I mean. Like, so they took it, and then Hams was like, "There's a void in the beer world to fill now," and they stepped up big time. You know, you just are trying to get shit faced on a 30 rack. That's your go-to.
It's apparently really popular because I couldn't find it. I'm like, where? It should be here.
Everywhere sold out. Clearly, I mean, I don't even know if they have Hams outside of like rural West Virginia. That's the only place I've ever seen it.
They have it here in Indy, but also like it's a similar vibe to rural West Virginia. Except Bush is a little bit more prominent. Like they've got on their 30 racks, it's a ear of corn.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it should be Hams though.
Right. Yeah, the thing too, like it's weird because like I enjoy drinking like fancy craft beer just as much as the next guy, you know? But I don't like hate cheap beer like some people do. Like if somebody hands me a Bush, I'll drink it and I'll find it pretty refreshing, you know. Like, but there's some people that like only will drink fancy like craft stuff, you know. And I love it to death. Like in the wintertime, I'm like I want to try all whatever's in season, you know. Because I like the thicker like stouts and
that's this guy right here.
Like,
yeah, I'm right there with you, Jordan.
Yeah. It's where it's in the winter because it gives you like it's heavier. It gives you a little more warmth, I guess. I hate drinking that stuff in the summertime because I feel like it's so hot out. Like it's gross. You know, you want something light, something you can kind of chug, because you need the water out of it more than
that's the problem I have.
For sure.
I have that problem in Texas because it doesn't it never gets cold down here. Although we did have like 1 week of snow down here and everyone freaked out. We're both actually originally from Erie, Pennsylvania, so
nice.
Well, yeah, we grew up not far from where you're staying, and actually both my brothers live in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's like an hour and some change north, isn't it?
Yeah, not even. Yeah. You know, let's get into the matter at hand. Is this new album you guys are awaiting its release? It's coming around the corner here now, October 8th. You're on Unique Leader Records. Start with that, just to get that signing on. In our opinion, is one of the best extreme metal record labels right now. It's insane of the lineup.
Yeah,
that record label has. Just your feelings behind that.
So we were like so happy because there's not really like a label that I can think of that just has like all awesome bands, at least in terms of the space that like we play in. You know, there's plenty of labels that, because I don't, it's weird, like I don't listen to a lot of like the music that we create is not what I listen to most of the time, at least not anymore. Like I've just kind of, you know, like get old, stop listening to cool shit. But like there's tons of labels that have a bunch of great bands that are all kind of different from each other. And Unique Leader like just has top to bottom, like every band on there is like awesome and a band that we could easily fit on a bill with. And I'm hoping they do like a giant Unique Leader tour where they just send all of us on one bill across the country.
You heard it here first. Make that happen, because
yeah. But yeah, like we self-released our last album, and I know a lot of bands are starting to do that now because with digital distribution and stuff, like it's easier than it's ever been to like get your own music out to the world and make money on it. But you kind of like, so, but granted, this was like 2018, I think the last album came out.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't quite where, as far as it is now and how accessible as it is now. But you could still, you know, do digital distribution and stuff and, you know, kind of just sell shit on Bandcamp. And it was cool because, you know, the other two albums we've done, we were always signed. So like, you know, when you start to see like people buying stuff, it's like, wait a minute, I don't have to like split this with anybody. Like this is straight to, you know, us. This is really cool. But you really miss out on like label branding. And Unique Leader, like they've built themselves into like a really cool brand because, you know, all their bands are kind of in the same, we don't all sound the same, obviously, but we're all in the same kind of spectrum of the deathcore scene at the moment. And Jamie, the guy that runs it, we've been friends for like, since like 2007, maybe. So
right on.
Pretty decent amount of time.
Been a long time.
Yeah. And he's just always been like super supportive of us and the type of music that we're trying to create. And he's never been like, you know, tried to make us anything than what we wanted to be, you know? And that's hard to find. And it's weird because I understand why a lot of labels are like that. Like they have to kind of shape their bands into something that's successful. And it makes perfect sense, like from the business side of things. And, you know, he's always just kind of let us do our thing. And I started sending him some demos when we were doing like pre-production for the new record, and he liked it. And here we are, I guess. We've actually like, we signed with them in like, I think like November or December of 2020.
Oh, so you've been sitting on that announcement for a bit.
It was like January. Right. It was like I think it was like January. But yeah, so like we weren't going to announce it until we released the first single, I guess. So we were sitting on it for like 6 months and just kind of finishing the album and doing everything kind of behind the scenes. But it went by really fast because like when we signed, then we had to, finish writing the album and record it and get it mixed and mastered and all that. And that took like all the way up to like May, like the middle of May. And the first song came out a month later. So it hasn't felt like that long for us, I guess.
With everything going on, especially with the pandemic and everything, how much did that have influence on this new record? Knowing it's going to drop this year, but like, just knowing how the state of affairs was in the scene and the industry with like no one going on tour, all that stuff, did that at all factor in what was happening and with production and all that jazz?
Absolutely. Like that's really, it was a really strange time for anybody, like even, non-artists and stuff. It's like, it's the first thing that's happened to really anyone that's on the earth now, for the most part, that
right here
has dramatically affected like society, So for us, we were like, kind of to the end of playing on the last album, and we didn't really, I don't think we had anything really, we had like one tour canceled, I think, when COVID like first hit. And then it was just kind of like, all right, well, let's just see what happens and kind of wait it out. And over time, like we had been kind of writing some of the songs a little bit before then, but barely. Like we had, maybe 2 of them written and just some demos and B-sides and stuff that didn't end up making the album. But I think just for any band, it was like, you have to do something to keep your mind like creative. And if it's not going to be live shows, it's like, what else can we do with this period of time? We just so happened to like, be to the end of playing on the last record. So we were kind of about due to start writing one anyways. And it just kind of gave us, some, I don't want to call it like reset time, but just because the whole music scene in general stopped for, a year and a half or longer. So it kind of like for us anyways, like it let us kind of get caught up in a sense because like I said before, with kind of campaigning on your own record without like label support and branding and stuff like that and marketing things, it's really like taxing. And we were all just kind of like, we really want to make a push to get our next record out on a label instead of do it ourselves. We all live we don't live far apart, minus our keyboardist lives in Florida, but the rest of us, like we all live in this region, just not all in the same like city. So Sarah and I live in Pittsburgh together. And then our drummer lives in Ravenswood, West Virginia, which is like 3 hours south of here. And our bass player lives in Marietta, Ohio, which is like 2 hours from here. Our singer lives like an hour and a half in Morgantown. They're all kind of in different directions, but again, same region. So like every like few weeks, we would all that's how we rehearse now. Like everyone will just all come up here for like a weekend, and they'll all stay at our house. And we have a rehearsal space like across town. And we just play for like 3 straight days, and then everyone goes home and comes back a few weeks later. So usually we do that like how we're doing it now, because we have shows and stuff in the next couple months. But at that time we did it a little bit more frequently because we're not preparing for shows. So there's always a reason to get together pretty much. And then we would like write and record pre-production demos in my studio here. So I don't know, we all just kind of didn't really focus on, oh my God, there's a pandemic going on. Like, I mean, we did a little bit and we talk about it a lot because it's just relevant to our lives every day. But I think all of us got really like immersed in just the creative process for the record. And it took like, it was a lot of focused energy in one direction from all of us, because we didn't have anything else really to do with our time aside from working, because everything's closed. There's nothing going on anywhere. You have no social life anymore, So it was in a way inspiring, I think, for us, because it brought out, much better material than our last record, I think. And I guess Unique Leader thought it was good and signed us for a few of them. And here we are.
That's what's up.
With a record, though.
That's sick, dude. We were actually just talking right before we started recording, because we both just like binged the whole Breathing Process discography while we were like writing up notes and everything. And it was cool. I mean, we were talking because we've been fans since In Waking Divinity. Like we would jam it in high school, and it's just like such a surreal thing. Be like, oh, dude, we're listening to like The Harvesting now. Be like, oh, now we're listening to like Dear Antigone, and but we noticed. Obviously, there was a big gap between when Odyssey Undead came out and Samsara came out, but it sounds like Labyrinthian is a pretty good mesh of like older Breathing Process and newer Breathing Process. How are you guys feeling like about the material and like just being, because you're the only original band member, correct, from the lineup?
Lineup, yeah.
So there's a lot of different parts now, and a lot of people that haven't been with the band necessarily for that long, other than Sarah, I believe she's been with the band. So I guess just, how are you feeling about the cohesiveness of the band? And you're talking about being immersed in the songwriting process and just hanging out, and, like what's that kind of been like going into this new album?
So it's really awesome that you guys listen to that stuff, because it's really old but near and dear to my heart, because that was like my whole life back then. It's really cool that you guys like it. I appreciate it,
dude. I bought that first album at FYE. I don't even know if that store exists anymore.
That was when distribution was cool. Like, you know how many pictures I sent to my mom when I was like, look, we're in the record store. Cool.
They had the headphones where you could listen to the albums, and like, dude, the first like 3 tracks in, I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I have a bunch of like Revolver magazines that I still kept, and I was hoping that one of them was the one that I first saw the Breathing Process in, because I used to be obsessed with that magazine. Unfortunately, it's not, but
yeah, that was like a childhood like bucket list thing for me, because I've been reading Revolver since I was like 14 or 15 or something like that. Like when I was like really starting to get into metal for the first time. So yeah, just like a picture in there. Like my mom has it framed somewhere at her house in Connecticut.
Dude,
that's awesome.
Like the only cool piece of press I think I've been on. But but they also, so they like, I remember that interview, like all of my answers were so like tongue in cheek, because we were playing a show with like a bunch of like metalcore bands in like Idaho somewhere. And, like it was just, that was kind of the scene then. Like it was, because that was when deathcore was first starting to become like a thing, so most of the underground metal scene was metalcore. That was like what was popular in the earlier 2000s. So I don't know, like just, I was fucking stupid and like thought that it would be just, I was trying to talk about like the Questions as though we were like one of those bands that was crying about girls or something like that. Ex-girlfriend lyrics, that kind of stuff. And again, it's, when I think about it now, I'm like, I was a fucking idiot. Like, who cares what people sing about? It's music, But back then, like, I don't know, I was like super young and naive and stupid, But anyways, so I gave just really bad answers, and I feel like it's taken like literally with how it's written. So I sound like this pompous, like misogynistic asshole. And I'm like, no, I was making fun of that. So the lineup of the band now is like Brian, our drummer, joined during like when we were in production with the last record. He wasn't on it, but he like joined like really shortly after we were done writing it and recording it. So me and him have had like a good few years of like playing together, and drummers for me are always like the most important thing to like any metal band. You can have a good drummer can make a shit band sound really fucking good. Like seriously,
hell yeah.
You can't, it's as close to an irreplaceable like person to me as like anything, So yeah, like we've just been slowly kind of building the band, I guess, back to like something solid. Because there is, you mentioned like the gap between Odyssey and Samsara. It's like 6 years or something like that. Like at that point in time, we had been on the road for like 3 or 4 like straight years almost on the first 2 records, because we toured a lot. Like, because that was during like the MySpace era where like, that was really what started flooding the touring market. Was like everyone's so interconnected that it's really easy for an underground band to book like a full US tour by just sending messages to people and actually have half decent shows. Like we had an agent then, and so that's what I'm saying. Like it's easy enough for bands that aren't signed with an agent. So when you were signed with an agent, like you could tour all year forever, and that's pretty much what we did. So I think like the lineup of Odyssey, we all just kind of got to an age where like adult life started catching up to us, because we started touring when we were all 20, 21, somewhere in there. So now we're like 25, 26, somewhere in there, and we're all just kind of I can't like live with my parents anymore, and I've got to start like figuring adulthood out a little bit.
For sure.
So we never really decided like, all right, we're just going to break up then or anything like that. It was just, we all just kind of needed to get our lives together. And so in the process of doing that, like John, the original singer, who was always a little bit older than the rest of us anyways, like, he wanted to just, have like a normal adult life and not have to tour and stuff. And yeah, like we just kind of dispersed almost, like we still kept kind of in touch, but it just we were all just kind of sorting things out, like finding jobs and, got to get an apartment, that sort of thing. So I moved out. Sarah had joined the band like right after In Waking came out, like maybe 6 months or so after it came out. She joined the band. So she wasn't on In Waking, but she did like half of the touring for it.
Okay.
So I, when I was, maybe like a year, maybe 2 years after Odyssey came out, I think I moved to Pittsburgh. That's where Sarah was from. And that took, some time to like, I mean, I had never lived outside of Connecticut before. So like, it took a while to get adjusted and get a job and an apartment and all that kind of stuff. So we never stopped writing. Like there's like a million older demos that we just never released because it, for whatever reason. But it was hard at first to like find people out here anyways, that were like really serious about it or wanted to like, play in a band that wanted to do things. And we weren't really touring to the point where we could have people like that weren't local to our area. You know what I mean? Like if someone lives like in Texas, they're not going to like fly up for band practice when you don't have like tours or something. So that took a while, like to really kind of get even like a drummer at first. I mean, in Pittsburgh has tons and tons of musicians too. And then there's a ton of really good bands here that are all starting to kind of get on the national circuit now, which is awesome. But I was like, really new to the scene out here. So like, I didn't know everybody and know who's who and who's in bands and who's not in bands, who's looking for bands,
Right.
I just kind of had to meet people and go to shows and stuff, which is cool. Because Pittsburgh is like, compared to a lot of other cities, like it has a very unique kind of scene where like the older like death metal crowd is really big here compared to like other cities where the metal crowd is usually like younger kids, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of like doom and sludge and grind kind of stuff is like super popular here, which is awesome. So I don't know, I just started going to shows and hanging out with people and meeting. That's what I've always done. That's how I started the breathing process in the first place, was getting in the scene and watching bands and stuff. So, just the longer we lived here, we started to kind of put some pieces together. We had a different singer on Samsara that was Cody Harmon. He's from out here. Like, we recorded an album. We played a bunch of shows, did a couple tours, and we both just kind of, as like a group, and him, like, just wanted different things kind of creatively. And I think he has like a metalcore band now called Healer, I want to say. Pretty cool if you're
Nice.
into like August Burns Red and that kind of stuff, like that kind of metal. But yeah, so we were kind of at the end of us playing on Samsara, we were like just kind of trying to find another singer, and we had some fill-ins for some tours that we did, like in Canada and stuff. And Chris was in another band in West Virginia called Disillusion Effect. We played a show with them in Morgantown, and I never really thought anything of it after that. Like, they're really good. Like, he was a really good singer, good frontman. They're like very different than like what we play. It's more, they were more like a super technical Lamb of God kind of style.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, not just the American heavy metal overtone, but with like tech death almost. Like, it was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So we were like kind of auditioning a couple people, and this was like 6 months, I think, after that time when Chris and I had met. He just randomly messaged me on Facebook because I think he had just heard that we were looking for a singer for a tour we were doing. And at that point, we had like a month before it. So I was like, if you can scream a little bit, you're in. I just don't want to like cancel this or whatever. So he learned our songs in like maybe a week.
Wow.
I think he recorded like a little, I mean, it was like 2 weeks. He's good, but he's not that good. Like, so he recorded just a rough version on like a little handheld recorder thing that he has. I think it's also called Zoom, but with an X.
I have one of those.
Yeah, like people who do like interviews and stuff. But I heard it and I was like, that sounds pretty good. Like, it's voices he wasn't used to using because of his other band wasn't really like, super guttural kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, come up to my studio and we'll try to like track one for real and just see what it sounds like with a little more polish, because it's hard. I mean, because I produce and stuff, like I can very much hear through like a bad recording, and like, I'm looking for different markers than the overall sound, like his like consistency, tone, volume of his voice, like that kind of shit. So he came up and recorded one of the Samsara songs with me, and it was just like instant chemistry. Like, he sounded really good. I could tell like some of his lows were a little bit rough because he wasn't used to doing them again. But, that just takes some time and some practice, some reps, some recording. Like, that usually helps develop voices. And he came out on the tour with us. Like, we practiced for like 3 days maybe as a band. And we were like, all right, I guess we're going to do it. And he just nailed it every night. I was like really happy with his like just demeanor and stage presence and his preparation. Like, he really took it seriously. And like, because of that, we didn't sound like shit like I was anticipating us sounding. And then, yeah, so when we got back, it was like, but he that was kind of his audition period, I guess. And we still had another kid that was really good, just he couldn't do that particular tour. So we were still kind of like, listening back to demos and stuff. And we just, we all got along with Chris really well, and he just fit right into our, the types of like people that we are, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, his personality matched really well. So now I've jumped all over the place with this, but like, I guess just the time we spent building the lineup that we have now, because it took so long to kind of get to where it is, it's the first time in a long time with our records that I felt like we're all creatively on the same page, and we all want to do the same thing. With Odyssey, that lineup was like so like pieced together mostly after the record. Like the recording of that was me, Sarah, John, and Jared, our old keyboardist. We basically all the bass player we had just joined, so he helped with like 2 of the songs, I think, but he didn't come to the studio when we recorded or anything. I just kind of recorded the stuff he wrote. But it just didn't feel like a huge group effort. It was very focused to a small group, and we just had people that played with us live during that kind of era, you know. And then Samsara was literally just me, Sarah, and Cody for most of it. Samsara too was more like it was an album that we should have came out with 3 years prior to that, but it was, because we'd all just been away from actually trying to make a record for so long. We needed to kind of just make something to, find the sound again, because we'd spent so long just not really being an active band, So some of the songs on there, I feel like were kind of rushed. The stuff that we should have done to them in hindsight, could have made a few of the songs better. There's still some good ones on there that I like. We still play Traveler live. I like that one. We usually play that one last, although lately we've been playing a new one instead. I don't know. So yeah, that. It just, again, it was kind of just a small group. It wasn't much of a collaborative effort. It was I wrote a bunch of, structures to songs. Sarah filled in kind of her style to some of it, and Cody recorded the vocals. And that was it. Whereas this one, we all were involved from the bare bones, and really all put a piece of ourselves into every song. We spent a long time just writing them, rehearsing them, and then recording them. Everyone, Brian went into the studio for a week. Chris and I stayed at our house for a week and a half, I think, and we just hammered it out every day, and everybody got to kind of put something in it, And Alex, living in Florida, we've known him for a long time anyways. He just happens to live there. But that was all the last record. I wrote a good half of the keys on it, and then another friend, Mark, wrote the keys on the rest of it. But he wasn't in the band. He just was kind of helping us do the record. So now having a dedicated keyboardist to write all the orchestra stuff, he's infinitely better than anything I could have dreamed up, let alone programmed or tried to play, So it all just it feels like how our first record felt, and I think that's why sound wise it reflects a lot on the earlier sound that we had, because it's more back to that way of thinking and approaching songwriting, as opposed to kind of doing it the bedroom producer way, where you have amp sims and a whole drum program. I can just write whole songs by myself, but it's a different experience and a different sounding band when it's the energy of multiple people versus one or two. That doesn't always work for the best, I guess, because it's always the saying too many cooks in the kitchen or whatever.
Yeah.
But for us, everybody just contributes their piece and understands everyone else needs to also, none of us really step on each other's toes creatively. And that's the first time in a long time that I've had a lineup that is like that. That was a really long-winded answer to your question, but I hope that
it's an amazing answer.
Yeah, honestly, that was very insightful. Sort of coming off that, I do want to ask about having Dave Otera do the mix and master. Just how excited were you about that to basically complete this whole thing?
So Dave he produced Odyssey also, but this was
word. Okay.
He this was before Cattle Decapitation, I think, is the band that really helped people know who he was. He did Cephalic Carnage and stuff in the earlier 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's on all their records. And then just a lot of other really good bands, but not all of them were like real big, you know. All of his recordings I've ever heard have been amazing, like even his really early ones. And one of like Odyssey is, I think, maybe not one of his earlier ones, but it sounds a lot different than what his records sound like now.
And that record sounds amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think that it would have sounded anywhere near as good if he wasn't the producer on it. As I can send you some of like the demo versions of those songs, and it sounds like it is on a Toys R Us tape recorder. They're rough. But just that experience working with him, it was the first time in our like existence or mine as a musician, like it was the first time that I had been like in a signed band and the label was like paying for us to go to Colorado to record a record with this like big producer. Like it was super surreal. Like we didn't like, cause the first record we self-produced and then Siege of Amida released it. They got it mastered also, but like our other guitarists at the time had like a studio and we just completely self-produced that record, but it was already done by the time, like when we got signed. So it wasn't like they didn't, do anything for the recording process. This one, like I get someone paid for my flight out to Colorado. It's like,
you're like, what's happening?
Like I'm like in a rock band now, Mom. But just it was the first time like I'd been in like a really professional environment like that. Like I'd recorded in plenty of studios before then. We did like our early demos at Zing Studios, which is where like Adam D from Killswitch owns that studio.
Oh,
like,
cool. Word. Nice.
Mass, like so all the Killswitch records are recorded there. They got all the plaques on the wall. So I recorded there, and that was with another, producer, but he was like not like a nationally known one at the time, So he just helped me a lot with like understanding the music that we were making. Like, because to me at the time, like I never sat down and was like, okay, we're going to cross this style with this style. This is going to be our band. Like I just liked death metal and I liked black metal. That's just what we started writing one day, and Dave Otero has like a pretty black metal background. I used to be in a black metal band, actually.
Oh, really?
Real fucking like cult sounding shit. It's awesome.
That's sick.
Yeah. So like, he working with him was so like, it brought out like the best that I could do. And I was way better guitar player than I am now. So I'm just like old. Now I just don't chords and not too riffy stuff. But, so when we got signed, they being signed again, like, wow, we can actually go record somewhere and get like a producer that, will make this sound really good. And Dave was the first person that I messaged about it. And
nice.
Just because I wanted, like, even though it was like, I would have loved to go out there and like do the actual, like, ground up recording, because he would have made it sound even better than he made it sound. And it still sounds insane. Just because of like COVID and our, recording budgets and stuff like that, like it's just more efficient, especially because I have a full studio here, like for us to just track it and have him mix and master it. So it was like a no brainer when he agreed to do it. I thought for sure that he was going to be way too busy and that we wouldn't be able to even remotely afford it. But it was worth every penny and every, thing. I don't know what I was trying to say.
Sweat and tears, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, we tracked it here. It was rough because it's really hard recording yourself, like for an album, because anybody that produces is got to be somewhat of a perfectionist at least, So when it's your own music that you're going to release, like you constantly want to redo everything and edit everything and make it absolutely flawless and whatnot. And it's stressful whereas when you have someone else in the room, like when we went to record with Dave, we had like 3 unfinished songs when we got out there. And he was just like, not having to make those decisions for myself makes things go so much smoother. Whether I agree or disagree, you know what? I'm paying you to make these decisions so that I don't have to. and I'm okay with whatever you think is the best thing to do. And the thing too about Dave is that I think anyone that's ever worked with him will probably tell you this too. Like, any idea that he has for your song is like, why the fuck didn't we think of this already? Everything. There was never one suggestion that he made that I was like, I don't know, man. Like, it's always like, oh yeah, like that's what I was trying to do here already. You just, guessed it.
You said, this guy gets it. He gets it.
Get out of my brain.
I know. He just stuff that I would never think of, or any of us would think of, just little subtle transitional things. And he's just an artist as a producer, and I'm going to try to make it so that all of our records are always produced by him, because he just understands like what we're doing, and he helps me make what I come up with better, what any of us come up with better, So it was a wonderful experience, and I hope to have another after that.
That's good to hear. You want someone on your court like that. Like, you just want that guy that just gets it, and good relationship and everything.
Right. He also made us the spiciest food I've ever eaten. Still to this day, I've never almost thrown up out of heat. It wasn't because it tasted bad; it was delicious, but it was like, oh my god, I'm gonna like throw up or something. Like, it's so hot.
The only other question I personally have, and it's been bugging me all day, just going through the entire discography, like we had mentioned before. What actually, this is a two-parter. What's your favorite just overall Breathing Process song, and what's your favorite one to play live? Because you've been from day one there, man. So I'm sure these are near and dear to your heart, and I know it's kind of like picking like a child.
I was just going to say that, man, like my favorite song, that's hard.
Or like a couple of them, like what
I could pick a favorite from each record, I think. Probably not like my favorite overall though.
Let's do that. Give us your favorite from each record.
Okay. So my favorite song on In Waking is probably Somnium, the last song, because the creation of that song was like this like hippie, like ethereal experience of basically late one night in Ian's studio, all of us, like, we got so high back then. Like, we would take probably like a 10 milligram Vicodin and then smoke a bunch of weed. So it's like,
hell yeah.
Again, like I'm not into drugs or pain pills or anything like that. Just, I was like 20 and like, yeah, let's get fucking high, man. So we would take those, and it was just, to me, I remember like it's the perfect, not the perfect, it's a good combination for creativity, or at least it was for all of us at the time, because we were always all on that same kind of wavelength as people, just like the lineup is now, so me and our drummer at the time were in the little drum room in our studio, which is like maybe the size of like a large closet, I want to say. Like, it's okay. Not, I mean, you could technically fit a bed in there and like make it the tiniest like jail cell bedroom, but it's pretty small. Like, it fits the drum kit, and like we can kind of fit in there with our instruments, but we're all like really fucking close to each other. But it was like 1 a.m. or something. Like, everyone else was upstairs like drinking or something, and me and him were just like in the drum room, and we were playing at super low volume. Like, he just had a kick pad and a snare pad, and I had like like the practice amp we had in there like at super low volume, and I just started playing like the lead, like how that song starts. And he did, like, we're both so high, like we're just like, oh man, let's feel the vibes, bro, and I just started playing it, and he just starts like tapping along, And then when we were we were just playing that same riff like forever, like just jamming on it, you know? And then maybe like 10 minutes into it, Ian came downstairs just to kind of, you know, see what we were up to. And we're like, oh, we're just listening to this. It's kind of cool. And then he just picked up his guitar and then added the chords behind it, like immediately. Like, and then our bass player came down after that because we were down there for like an hour. Like, you know, just he's upstairs with like a couple other people and we're just jamming away. And we're like, yo, check this out. This is kind of cool. And again, we are all so high at the moment. And we just all just started playing it. And the next day, I was like, fuck, I really hope I remember this because everyone was pretty baked. Like, I don't know. And just the moment I woke up, it was like immediately to the computer, like, okay, we have to record this like right now so that we don't forget it. But yeah, like that's like that, just the experience of making that song, because it's not a complicated song at all. The whole song is like 2 parts. It was just the way that it was made felt like a very like important moment in time. And I'm glad that we were able to capture it like on a recording, you know? Odyssey is harder because to me, I feel like that was like my peak as a guitar player, even though, you know, maybe I'm better now in some ways, but not in others. I just was younger and faster, I guess. As you get older, like if you don't constantly fucking play guitar, like, it starts to get harder and harder. And like, I've always been a rhythm guitar player and like songwriter over a guitarist. Like there's the worst guitar player in every room, probably, but because I'm not like a technically proficient guitarist. I can play, like I don't suck.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, like I'm more focused on rhythmic parts and songwriting, song structure, that kind of thing, you know? So Odyssey, like when we play some of that stuff now, I'm always like, how the fuck did I ever come up with this? Like,
you're like, is that me? Did I record?
Yeah. Who made this? Because it couldn't have been me. Otherwise I'd be able to play it right now and I can't, you know? But that one, the last song, Decaying Form, is probably my favorite in terms of being the most melodic and emotionally gripping to me. Like I love every part of that song.
Oh yeah.
And Metamorphosis is probably the other one because I wrote all the pianos that song. And it's the coolest piano shit I've ever made in my life. I've never made anything cool since and didn't really make anything cool before. But that one day on Fruity Loops, I was just like, this is cool. Oh my God, I could play piano. And then I can't play piano at all.
That was like a metamorphosis for that one particular day. And then it's just like, now we're back down to normal Jordan.
Yeah. And like the thing too that I think we're going to do more of on our next record, as we've kind of just been passing little demo things back and forth, is Odyssey. Like, and that was really like the sound that I feel like we really were onto something with, because at the time, really the only bands that we were like, you know, compared to a lot was like Winds of Plague, and Abigail Williams kind of took themselves completely in the black metal direction.
Yeah.
So that comparison kind of stopped. But Winds of Plague, that was always like who we were compared to, and we sounded similar enough to like an average listener, I guess. But it's really like they're the only other band, the only other deathcore band with a keyboard at that time was Winds of Plague. So like, everyone was just like, "Oh, you guys sound like Winds of Plague," and it's like, we don't though. We're just
very different.
Yeah, like I don't like see that other than the keyboard.
A ton, and like Elena ended up when she left our band, she ended up joining them. So like we're all
more of a comparison.
That is actually like, right. Yeah, you're like epiphany to me. Like that's right.
It makes total sense. You know, I get it. But Odyssey, like we really, especially because of Jared, the keyboardist at the time, he was super into like electronic music. Like that was actually how I met him, was on Craigslist one day, because I was like Elena had left and I was like, fuck, we need a keyboardist. And this like I didn't know anything about Craigslist. I was like, I wonder if there's like a musician part. Maybe some random keyboardist is looking for a band. And he was looking for like a female vocalist for like an industrial project or something.
And, no shit.
Yeah, and I was like, I've always, because I grew up, I'm 35. Like I started listening to music in like the 90s. So I've always been super into like Nine Inch Nails and Rammstein and stuff like that.
Oh hell yeah!
So I thought I'd have thought like, well, maybe he'd be into what we're doing if I kind of explain like, it would be cool to have that kind of influence on our music. I've always wanted to. Like, I've never wanted to like pigeonhole our band into one corner. I've always wanted to like leave space for growth and able to go in different directions. Yeah, in outer space.
It's all themed. It's all tied together.
Yeah.
It's all, yeah.
So I think like, with this record being a little more reminiscent of In Waking, I think the next one will have more of the Odyssey influence in terms of like the more icy electronic sounds and soundscape stuff. We did a lot with that on the new records, like soundscape sounds instead of just orchestral stuff. So when it comes out, you'll hear, I guess.
Oh, we can't wait, man.
Yeah.
We're all about musical journeys, so anything that does that for us is
right on. All right, yeah. So Metamorphosis, Decaying Forms, Odyssey, Samsara. I think Traveler or Absolute Truth is really good too. That one, just the two really black metal-y songs. Absolute Truth, the main melody of it is like my favorite guitar part from that whole record. That's one of my favorites to play live, and we barely play it live. Especially kind of now we're only playing Traveler from Samsara, but they're all like we can technically pull them out and play them, most of them from that one.
Gotta do it at least once, like by the end of the year, man.
We're trying to make like a cohesive set that like, creates like one kind of a shorter version of the journey, So we're starting to practice some Odyssey songs because we didn't really get to tour a lot on that record. So like, we're all kind of hoping, maybe bring a couple of those to life. We haven't played anything from In Waking in a long time. We were playing like Harvesting when we were doing this like Samsara tours. And like, we know how to play Antigone as a group. It's not the prettiest all the time, but some practice will get there. And then the new record, my favorite song is it's not one of the singles, but it's the one that Jamie Graham did the feature on. If you knew that,
I can't wait for that. He had a great feature on that Brand of Sacrifice album.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty. He sings on it, so it's like it's super majestic. That was another thing that we like meant to do for this record, was do more of like Sarah singing, and Alex, our keyboardist, has a really good singing voice also.
So is that Sarah on Odyssey? I was always curious about that.
Yes.
Oh right.
We were trying to figure that out earlier.
Yeah. There's two songs that one of my friends, she's like an opera singer. She did like a couple parts on Odyssey, but the majority of the singing on Odyssey is Sarah. So it's kind of what her voice sounds. And when her and Alex sing together, it's like this majestic, beautiful sound of stuff. So I think for the next record, we'll probably have some. And that's also what I meant about like, I've never wanted to like corner ourselves. Like we've had singing before and we all liked it. We just, for whatever reason, didn't do it on the last record. And this record, it was mostly because we kind of we didn't write the songs with having singing in mind, like we did with the Odyssey songs. So when we tried to add it, there was nowhere that there's places you could probably argue like, oh, that would have sounded cool with singing, but it was just, whenever we tried, it just wasn't working. Like, cause we didn't write it with that in mind ahead of time,
Right.
So the next record will probably write some stuff that has that like built into it from the beginning.
Arie, and it's come to this next record and have
it's the title track of the album, the one that Jamie is on.
Title track? Okay.
Oh, nice. How fucking cool though, like that's like the guy that you're on a label with and be like, hey, do you want to like also have a feature? Because you're really good at what you do on both ends.
I've always been such a big fan of his voice, and I often ask him why he even bothers with all of this metal crap and just singing like a fucking like a 3 Days Grace, like a Breaking Benjamin, that kind of band. Just shoot yourself to rock stardom and stop playing around in here with us.
You know what's funny about you saying that
is community.
We interviewed Matt McGatchy of Vox and Hops and Cryptopsy.
Nice.
And he loves singing too, but you don't know that about him. And it's just like, there's this whole other person.
I love singing. Like I grew up on like new metal. So like,
dude,
I'm
just we're all about this new wave of new metal right now.
Same. I like, have you heard, what new bands are you listening to? Like
Tala for sure.
Tala
is so good.
That recent single, Vanilla Pace is
future.
Insane.
Yeah. Have you heard Tetrarch?
Oh, hell
Love
yeah.
Tetrarch.
They're fucking awesome too. He sounds to me like it's like Chester Bennington, just in a heavier band. Like, it's fucking awesome. And they like, it's singing about the same stuff that like those bands sang about when I was growing. It, had this huge impact on me, and there's a whole new generation of kids. Like, I love that there's bands like that to, fill that space. Like, Motionless in White does a really good job of that now too. Like,
they do
for sure.
The kind of outsider, like goth kids. That's what I was when I was like high school. Or middle school, probably more. I was more in like the underground scene by the time I got to high school. But middle school, I was very much like a goth new metal kid, like hands down.
Awesome.
Did you ever listen to Crossbreed ever?
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was big on Mudvayne. That was my new metal band.
Mudvayne.
Same. I wish that their performances were closer to me. I really want to go see them.
Dude, I know.
Yeah.
As they're now playing again. Ugh.
Yeah, they're on like three big festivals or something like that.
There's another band called Jinx.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard them?
Yes.
Dude, my fiance is really big into them.
Dude, their guitar player Jerry and I have been friends since like 2005. Like,
oh shit,
because they're from New York and we were always from Connecticut. So like, we're just in the same, like that Northeast scene, because all the states are so small. Like, you go to shows in New York, you go to shows in Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's like a hop, skip, and a jump just to get to the next.
Yeah, so like when we were really first like starting, like getting out of Connecticut, like that's where we play, like upstate New York and Massachusetts and stuff. And he used to play in this band called We Are the Romans, not We Came as Romans, but they were called We Are the Romans.
Tricky.
It was with Mike.
It's like a one-up on We Came as Romans. Like, well, we are.
That was before We Came as Romans was around, I think.
Oh wow!
Or maybe it was around the same time. I don't remember. But Michael, their drummer, is the guy who drums for Through the Eyes of the Dead, and he used to be
man, what a great band!
Yeah,
underappreciated that band.
Yeah,
we used to just play like dingy hall shows in like random towns in New York, me and Jerry, and in like Eastern Pennsylvania and stuff. And now he's in Jinx, and their band's fucking amazing. Like, again, with the kind of they're bringing like what new metal did for like me or like us, and growing up and just delivering it to a new generation. And it's great. And I think that's the next wave of big bands around here.
As it should be. I mean, it's the beauty, at least, I don't want to generalize for all of us, but at least for myself, like, it's just such a good mixture of the heaviness, and you have like the hip hop elements, and you have industrial elements. So it's just like a melting pot of all these different genres. Well, I mean, like what you guys are doing with the breathing process, just like on a different spectrum. I mean, you have multiple genres in one and be like, cool, I like a bunch of different things, and now y'all are doing all the things that I enjoy. So like, what's not to love?
Exactly. And it's going to be a great year for metal in general. Like there's so many albums coming out because just like us, every other band pretty much used quarantine as like, all right, well, we got nothing else to do. Let's just make a new record. And I think it allowed most musicians to like really be able to focus on it and put like all the time that most adults wish that they could put into, a creative project. Like, because, a lot of people are on like unemployment or like cut hours working and stuff like that. Like everybody just got a chance to like not have to worry as much. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people got a chance to not have to worry as much about, the mundane side of life and got to just put time into their craft. And everything that I have heard of, like, even just unique leaders of releases, like Vulvodynia's new album is nuts.
That band is insane.
Signs of the Swarm's new album is gonna change the deathcore genre. Like it's so good and it's so ridiculously technical, but still them. And that to me, that's the band that's really about to shoot to the top this year is Signs of the Swarm.
We're still blown away they got Alex for that track that they just released.
So sick.
Because we're big Despise Icons fans, and we're just like, you got him.
So
okay.
But dude, you can't take away from Wilt when you had David on there too. I mean, that song is fucking amazing, dude.
That was like a really cool thing because like we've, just from being out here in the Pittsburgh scene, like we've always known each other, but never really like, we know the same people. We're in the same circle. We're at the same shows all the time, and he's just such like a hardworking but incredibly humble artist. Like he's so easy to talk to and approach, and he's just like super serious about his band and what they're doing, and it's awesome. And I just randomly messaged him one day and was like, like it'd be a really cool thing just for our city because we're both from Pittsburgh. Like, we're both, I mean, they've been on Unique Leader for a while, but like, we just signed with them. Like it's a really easy collab to put together for just anybody who likes deathcore, but particularly for like our scene here because, we're both in the same circle, and he was just like, yeah, then let's do it. And he came to our studio here and I locked him in a closet that was like 95 degrees. And he just made it way cooler than it would have been without him. And I think he said this was like his first time too. Like most features that bands do with most vocalists, like, usually you don't live in the same city. Like, one records it somewhere, one records it somewhere else. Like you just send files, put it together. We got to like really sit down like with the lyrics and like him and Chris just kind of like worked out who's singing what, where we're doing this, what voices to use. And it came out just really fucking cool. And he was also just happened to be available when we shot the video for it. And he came down to a nice farm that's like 40 minutes outside the city. And he actually helped us a lot with the production of that video, like
that's awesome.
The hooded figure in that is also in one of their videos.
Oh no shit!
Yeah, it's the same get up, same person actually who was in the suit.
Y'all are creating a deathcore multiverse now. Let's see what's going on.
Exactly. I've always, dude. That's like my dream. Like, if there was ever a way to actually do that with videos, like just have a few of them like intersplice the same story. Although I feel like someone's going to think of that now that I've said it out loud.
Dude, we'll talk about that. We both do video, so like we could make that happen if you really wanted to.
I think I'm going to put this forward to somebody who can help conceptualize this whole thing. I think it'd be a really fucking cool thing to do. Kind of like what Vulvodynia did with the Bob thing.
Yeah.
Bob
we were having such a good time with that. We loved every part of that.
Like if something like that, but in video form would be really awesome, I think. And I've seen it a lot since the whole well, I mean, it's not really over, but since all the restrictions were lifted and tours are getting back, like a lot of bands are all like just commenting on each other's stuff and being super supportive of each other.
Yeah.
And everything. And it's really, really cool. It's cool to see. Good steps for the scene.
I think what might need to happen in addition to the deathcore universe, Signs in the Swarm and the Breathing Process, dude, you guys got to do one of those. It's been really popular where like other bands cover their songs. Like we were just talking about how Distant did an Of Sulfur one, and like August Burns Red does Fit for a King. That'd be pretty sick, dude.
So remember earlier in our conversation where I told you that I'm not a good guitar player by any means. The stuff that they come up with just boggles my mind. Like I think I could play like the riffs and stuff. It's how they get from point A to point B is such, like, in terms of like their parts, like the riff structure and stuff. It's so complex, but so catchy still. I don't get it. I don't know how that's done. And I don't think I would have the brain for it at the moment. Maybe I'd have to practice for a while.
I think you need to return to that jail cell
Jeff
room.
Russo could play one of our songs in like a heartbeat just once after hearing it, probably. But I can't play their shit. I'll think about it. I'll see if they want to do it.
Okay.
I'll say, look, pick me like the easiest, dumbest song you have, and I'll give you the hardest one we have, and I bet that we'll still lose this. Looking forward to it, actually. But yeah, they're a great band, and I really am excited to see where they go, because they're a good band for the genre, and they work really hard and deserve a lot of success for it.
Oh yeah.
Agreed, but don't take away from what the Breathing Process is doing, man. Like, you guys, dude, we've been fans, just us speaking, we've been fans since in high school, and still like we were so stoked to see not only that you came back with Samsara, but just the whole Labyrinthian, just the album cycle there, dude. Like we were beyond stoked to see that shit. So thank you for what you did and are doing with the genre. So like
that means a lot to you guys. Thank you.
Seriously, like some of the bands that exist nowadays would not be to me in existence without y'all. So
y'all are taking back the crown, like you told us, for sure.
Man, there's so many good ones now too. Like I love it because it showed, because I mean black metal in general is such like a broad genre, and there's so many little like stylistic like kind of discrepancies between them, so I feel like now that it's become more of an influence on the deathcore genre, like it's cool seeing everyone's interpretation of it, because like for us, we're older, so like our influences are older, so the stuff that influences us to make this style isn't what influences like Lorna Shore or Shadow of Intent or Mental Cruelty. Although I think Mental Cruelty is the closest to us, I feel like, in terms of overall sound. Like I feel like a lot of them listen to this section the same way that we do, and it's a similar idea pool, I guess. But I still feel like just we all have our own interpretation of it, and there's like I always get so like I don't understand when people on like YouTube make these like judgmental comparisons of like, oh, this band did it first, and oh, this band, you just sound like this guy, and it's like maybe in some aspect, but again, all of us have a different interpretation of it, and it shows if you listen to everyone's albums. Like,
if you're like, actually listening,
yes, we all have orchestral parts, sure, but I mean, in the Romantic period, everyone had orchestral parts, because that's the only instruments that there were. Did everyone be, oh, you sound like fucking Beethoven, dude? No, no one said that. You know, it's
like, oh, did you hear Bach? Oh, he's just trying to pull.
What a poser.
Oh, what a Wish.com version of Bach, man. I think there's space for all of us to exist and for all of us to succeed doing like a similar, it's any genre. Like nu metal was nu metal. There was like a million bands in it that all found success and all had a kind of unique take on it. You know, it's just evolution of music. And I think if everyone takes the time to really listen to just all this art that all of us are putting out, like, yes, it's probably under the same umbrella, but it represents completely different things and has completely different aspects other than the fact that we all use choirs and strings and play chugs sometimes, you know. But like the newer bands, to me, like they're while I'm sure some of them listen to some bands that we do, like, you know, it's influenced by more modern music, so it sounds like a more modern version of it, you know.
Right. Like
for us, we listen to like either really old black metal or weird black metal, stuff that's kind of not easy to palate. Like, I don't know if I would call them black metal, but do you know the band Portal?
No, actually not.
I'll send you guys a video of Portal. There's a song called Curtain that is hands down the scariest fucking music video I've ever seen. And music videos don't scare me. Other than like some of the videos in like the 90s when bands had these enormous budgets for fucking music videos, like Manson's videos are some of the best music videos that were ever made because they're just creepy. Yeah. Portal's video is like makes me feel like uneasy watching it. Like it's just scary.
Well, we're fans of horror, so we're there. Yeah.
They're the noisiest fucking, like, probably worst band on earth to almost everyone that hears them. But I just get it. Like I get what they're just trying to sound like a horror-scape. Like it's not supposed to be melodic or musical, and I love it. You know, so like, whereas you know maybe the bands that are doing it now are kind of listening to the more bands that have come out in the last like 10 years, like Flesh God Apocalypse, I imagine is a big influence on a lot of people. And they are on us too. Like I've always loved them. I've always loved just the concept of their band and how they're like, they've always written like an orchestral arrangement, even though they've used like electric guitars and stuff like that. Like it's awesome. And they're arguably the best at it in terms of like the black metal, death metal crossover, based to me, you know. But I don't know, like we've never sat there and been like, we want to sound like this band. We just listen to what we listen to and it comes out in what we make. And we all like black metal. We all like death metal. We just like the sound of the two of them together, I guess, you know? So.
And it pairs quite well. And you guys do it quite well. So
thank you.
Again, thank you for not just paving the way, but still fucking killing it, man. Like Todd said before, Labyrinthian can't get here fast enough. It's going to be sick. And y'all will hopefully get the recognition that you deserve. I mean, you've been doing it a long, long time, but this is the melding of the best of all the eras of the breathing process, at least to Todd and I, it seems like that. So
I think so too.
I hope so.
And I think, you know, anyone that has been a fan of our band before, there's nothing about this that would make you dislike us. Like it's just as heavy, it's just as black metal as anything we've done. It's a lot more polished. Like because of the amount of time we spent in just preparation and like pre-production and songwriting, and then having like a legit producer mix and master it. And like, it's certainly the best sounding record we've had out, I think, in terms of like production and whatnot. But you know, we're older, we've been doing it a long time, and I think we've now really figured out like how to blend the two styles in a seamless way, which is kind of just what we've always tried to do. Like we haven't always succeeded in doing it, but now I feel like, you know, this is what we've always wanted to sound like, and where we go from here will be even more of an extension of that. And I'm really excited for everyone to hear like the shit we're working on now, because it's like now that we've found like the center, you know, now it's everything is just, it sounds great like right away, as opposed to like it being like rough ideas, you know. And like everyone in the, well, not everyone, but like I think like four of us, like we're all capable of writing like full songs just by ourselves, which is something I also have never really had. Like usually I've always been like the primary like songwriter or whatever, and everyone always like added to it or like changed little things and stuff, you know. Whereas now like everyone understands like songwriting, not just playing the instrument. And the result of that is like we have this massive pool of material now to like pick stuff from. And the more material you have, like the better the final product is, because you have just all the best things of everything made into a song, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
Does this feel like sort of a rebirth in a way for the band? It's just like
sort
of another starting point?
That's like, I mean, that's kind of what Samsara is. That's what it represents. That's what the word means. It's rebirth, you know, like that's kind of what that was, in the sense of we need to get back to being creative, because all of us had spent a long, like good 6 years not being creative, you know? And now I feel like, you know, we're ready to go. Like we're finally ready to like make something real, make the music we've always wanted to make. And everyone wants to do the same thing. It's nice for a change. It sucks that it has taken so long to happen, but we've never really tried to rush anything. It's always been in our own time. And, you know, to me, like finding like success with it, you know, it's never, I've never been into music for like the money or fame, or not that we're famous or anything, but you know what I mean? Like it's always just been like therapy for me. And I think that's what it's been for all of us. And even, you know, the members of our band that have come and gone, like, you know, there was never like a harsh, like falling out with anybody. It was always just like life, and it moves in a very one direction in terms of time, but we all move in different directions as far as we are as people, you know? So it served them in the time that they spent in it. And when they didn't need it anymore, they moved on. And for me, it's always just been my outlet. And that's why I've always kept it, you know, like there's been plenty of times where we've thought of like just being like, let's just rebrand or make a different band. We can still play the same stuff, but new name and all that. And I mean, who knows, like that may happen someday, but we all just play music to play it and to get away from mundane adult living, I guess.
I feel that.
Yeah.
Y'all should rebrand it to the digestive process. That's all I'm gonna.
we always talk about like, when does the art like transcend the artist, essentially? So like you send it out into the universe, you know, Labyrinthine comes out, and then people just digest it and they take it as their own and their own experiences, whether it's like getting through a hard time or just, you know, they're painting and they're listening to this album, and art stems from art. Yeah. So I mean, to your point, it's just like everything's been done before. Like there's no really new original ideas, but like how do you take your experiences and your interests and then you make it your own? So like,
right, exactly. Like there's been so many times where like I've heard like a song or something and I'm like, well, I want to learn how to play that, you know, because it's cool. I want to make something like similar. So I learn it, and what I end up making sounds nothing like it. It's just I used that as an influence to get to the final product, you know? Like it doesn't even, most of the music that influences me is like when I write parts is not even, it's not like metal music at all. It's like honestly, like most of what I listen to like in my when I'm not listening to metal, because I mean, I have to listen to it because I play metal. Like, I love metal. I'll always love it. But I'm not always in the mood to feel angry or sad. Well, some sad kind of transcends every genre. So you kind of find that in everything. You know, like, just I'm not always in the mood for metal, and I am less and less, just the more, because I've just done it for so long. Like, I love it. I'll always love it. I'll always listen to it, but I won't always listen to it 24 hours a day, you know?
For sure.
Totally.
But like most of what I listen to is like breathy, like female singer-songwriter, like folk rock stuff, you know? I'm a huge Death Cab for Cutie fan, which surprises a lot of people.
Oh, hell yeah.
They're legitimately like top 3 for me. Like, I love absolutely every album they've ever made. And I love how Ben Gibbard writes lyrics. And I love everything about the band. But like them and like Radiohead is always a big influence for me, because I've just always liked them since I was like a kid. And continue, like, even the stuff they've come out with lately is like awesome. Like, I love it. It's just finding inspiration in other genres. Like, it's what helps you not sound like every other band around you. Because if you're influenced by, you know, 1 or 2 metal bands, then everything you make is going to sound like those 1 or 2 metal bands. Maybe it's not an exact rip off of one of their riffs, but it'll sound like something they could have easily written, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you draw it from other genres that aren't metal, you have to like form that melody into something that makes sense for metal. So in doing that, you kind of warp and contort it to where it's not the same as the original, but it's still good. It's still cool. It sounds like that's what we've always done, or at least what I've always done. You know, obviously I get influence from metal also, you know, like, it's, you kind of have to play it in a metal band, but some of like the best stuff that we have, I think, is stuff that was influenced by completely non-metal music, you know, because the emotion that you're trying to portray is still the same. Like, Radiohead is one of the darkest bands ever to exist, and they have some of like the softest music, you know.
It's like usually how it goes. It's like these radio friendly songs, if you really listen to them.
Yeah, like another band I've been really into lately is Muse, the proggy rock band from England. Like, I'd always known who they were. I just never really, you know, took the time to like listen to much of their music, other than like, you know, the singles that were always all over the TV and radio and stuff. But like, they have some of the most complex music I've ever heard, and it's in this nice, neat little catchy rock package. But if you really sit there and listen to like what they're doing, like, there's some crazy technical stuff going on in there, and their singer's voice is nuts. Like, how everyone doesn't love them, you know. I'm still just getting started. Like, I'm like 2 or 3 of their albums in, or maybe not albums, but like they have a lot of like EPs and demos and alternate versions stuff. I'm like, I think like through maybe 2 of their albums, but I like it all.
Which is funny, and it makes perfect sense, because like Muse wants to be Radiohead. They just do it like in a little bit of a different, like a little heavier of a sense, but like.
So did Coldplay when they came out. That was exactly
that's true.
What they did. And here's the thing too, like, you know, Coldplay is very much a pop band now, but the first 2 Coldplay albums are really good, and there's some really like emotional, dark songs in there. There's a song by Coldplay called Trouble, which has just a very simple and extremely sad main piano line to it. And just listen to the song. It's like, man, this is some heavy shit in here, you know? Not heavy like heavy metal, like heavy emotionally, you know?
That's what we like to say on Brewtal, is like, music can be brutal in its own way. Like when Spirit Box came out with Constance, I was like, that's brutal.
Yeah,
and a whole nother.
I love this song, and I can't watch the video. It's so sad. I'm like,
very sad.
I want to like bum myself out now. But that means that they did a really fucking good job of, you know, making a song and an accompanying video that displayed what the song is about, you know? That's another one that to me is like the next big one is fucking Spirit Box. Like, I don't know how you could listen to it and not love it if you like heavy music at all. Like, so those bands that can kind of transcend the subgenres, those are the ones that get really, really big.
Yeah.
You know, because everyone likes them. That's why Slipknot blew up, because everyone on every side of the metal spectrum loved it. Pantera was like that. Metallica's like that. You know?
Yeah.
So there's a theme.
I think they should be the next big band out here.
That's exactly what happens. Like, even with you guys, like, you know, you're playing what you want to play, and then that is going to appeal to the right person. So, like, if you don't like it, then, you know, there's other bands you can listen to. Like, that's one thing we talk about all the time. Like, we try not to get too much into genres because there's so many, like, gatekeepers. They're like, well, you're wrong.
Absolutely.
You're like, well, I mean, we're just fans too, and, like, there's no definitive, like, this is this. Like, it's all metal, it's all music, it's heavy. It's just like, you know, is it the softer spectrum of what's going on, or is it like the weird black metal stuff that you're talking about? Like, what is the definitive metal music? And that's going to be different for everyone. So
absolutely,
just fuck off.
Yeah, just there's this movie that my friend gave me when I was in high school. I think I was in high school. Yeah, it's like right around the end of high school. It's called Igby Goes Down. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that.
No.
Okay. No.
So it's like an indie movie about, like, just a rich family and how fucked up their lives are, more or less. You know, I would probably put it under, like, the dark comedy category. Like, the movie opens with the two sons, like, putting a bag over their mother's head to kill her. But then, like, it becomes almost humorous in this, you'll see if you ever watch it. Anyway, so there's a part in the movie where the main character is kind of like on the lam, like, from his house. He's like hanging out in the New York City by himself, you know, like, whatever. He meets this like artist couple, and they're having this conversation, and the guy tells the kid that he's an artist, and the kid asks him, like, you know, so what do you paint, in, like, this really snide, sarcastic way. And he looks at him, and they're rolling this huge ball thing, like, back and forth. And he says, an artist creates art no matter what form the canvas takes. And then he rolls the ball back to him. It says, oh, so you don't paint. It's this funny, stupid moment. But that is something that, like, I've always like held, you know, that just with art, like, there's no one sets the rules for it. No one says, I mean, technically, you know, if you're a painter, like, a museum curator can tell you that your art sucks, but, like, someone can tell you that your band sucks. You know, it's art in general is so subjective that it's not meant to fit in a box. And when it does,
see, that's the thing reviews try to do, is fit it in a box.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, like, to me, like, that's the greatest art there is, you know, what normal people would call obscure in a way, you know, at least at the time, like, but that's the beauty of it, is that it's a visual or, like, oral interpretation of someone's mind, you know, and that's what makes it cool. That's why we do it, you know, like, it's your brain on a canvas, pretty much. So why try to make it anything? Why try to box it into something? This isn't good because this person says it's not, but this other person might think it's the greatest thing in the world. You know, some people think we suck. Some people think we're cool. You know, you'll never please everybody with any art. And you shouldn't have to. Who cares? I don't care if you think that we suck. Like,
you know what this makes me think of is that scene in The Office when Pam has her artwork of the Office at the show, and like, no one's visiting her section, but then Michael Scott shows up and he's like, well, I gotta have this in The Office. It's like, that's exactly it. It's just like, you'll always find that one person that gets it. Like,
yeah,
that feels something from it.
You know, that's why any of us do it. It's just, someone somewhere is gonna like this, and for some people, more people like it than others. Yeah. All there is to it, I suppose.
Jordan, this has been an absolute pleasure, man.
A journey through space.
Yeah, we're still going, dude.
Time together.
We've transcended both, and
we've come out the other side of the black hole.
Yeah, brought to you by Aquafina. All of your space traveling needs.
That's been floating in space for thousands of years.
Oh, how did you get here? Well, dude, we're sound like a broken record. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the music that you make. Labyrinthian is coming out very fucking soon on Unique Leader Records. How can we like to call our audience Hop Wolves? How can all the Hop Wolves stay up to date with you, with the band? Anything? Plug away, sir.
Okay, so the album comes out October 8th. Everywhere. You can pre-order it still on indiemerchstore.com. I think you just search The Breathing Process. It's up there. We update our Facebook and Instagram pretty regularly. Instagram is just at The Breathing Process. Facebook is The Breathing Process USA, and thebreathingprocess.bandcamp.com. We sell our tour merch on Bandcamp. We're launching an indie merch store pretty soon with a bunch of different designs and stuff. The Bandcamp is where it's only the stuff that we actually print to sell at our shows and stuff. So you can find cool stuff on both, basically. Indie merch might have some cool stuff that we aren't able to carry, really expensive windbreakers and hoodies and stuff that are just, but yeah, I think that's pretty much all. Our next single comes out September 14th.
Okay.
There's one more music video that we are releasing, which we have, as of this day, not filmed yet. But it's coming. It's coming in a week, and then it'll be out a few days after that. But and then I think we're trying to do a listening party for the album with some people on there. That would be the day the album comes out, which is again October 8th.
Mark your calendars, guys.
Any of our social media will have all the updates on that, as well as tours and shows that we've got coming up. We're doing a little run with Battlecross and the Convalescents for Halloween, which should be fun. Haven't seen Battlecross in a long time, which is pretty cool. Looking forward to that one. And you guys should make the trip for that one, because I don't know when we will be anywhere near you again.
You've convinced me over this talk. It's gonna have to happen. I can't not see it at this point. I'm fucking stoked.
I don't know if you're gonna come back from Texas, but we are talking about some Texas stuff.
Okay.
Next year, I think. Where do you live in Texas again?
Austin. So if you guys come through, I'm assuming it'll probably be at Come and Take It Live, which is a great venue.
Yeah. I imagine that would be the one. I don't know a whole lot about that at the moment, but I know that we are in talks with some stuff that would bring us there. So hopefully it works out.
Well, if you guys come through, I'll treat you to some good Tex-Mex. That's what I'll do.
We will never say no to food.
My man.
Our band is some big boys and a girl who's really small. But the rest of us, we eat a lot of food.
Well, then maybe some barbecue. Who knows? We'll see.
I'm into it.
All right. Yeah. I say let's end this with a cheers.
Cheers. Thank you guys for having me. This has been really fun.
Thank you for taking the time.
Dude,
seriously.
Thank you. Especially after that marathon recording session. We really appreciate it.